It's week 17 in the NFL. Did you make it?
Well, I made it thanks to Christian Barmore. He's pretty good, huh?
Okay. Let's talk about that and more today on the Audible.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to football, guys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
Week 17 waiver wire it is. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. And did you make it? And did you not make it because of Brock Purdy, Bloom? I was expecting a better game on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I think that Mike McDonald, we've talked a lot about Ben Johnson as the hot coordinator on the rise, the name that all the teams are going to be after that are looking for head coaches in 2024. But maybe we need to talk a little more about Mike McDonald. And McDonald has stepped in and created not just the number one pass defense, but what you saw in Doug Farrar, who should be on your short list of football writers that you make sure to tune into every week, detailed how Mike McDonald, a la Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl against Jared Goff, showed Purdy one thing before the snap, and then he saw something very different after the ball was snapped. And I think that's what you have to do. And I think it gets back to the discussion we always return to, which is the quarterback position is a mental position first and foremost, not a physical position. And I think the Ravens were able to reverse engineer. This is how Purdy is so successful based on what you show him. So if you show him and induce him into a certain expectation, I think Belichick cut the cord and just confused Goff, changing the look after the 15-second cutoff in the headset so McVay couldn't see him. I think that McDonald and the Ravens anticipated what Purdy would do based on what the look would be, and then showed him something that would be lethal, anticipating that. And it's going to be interesting to see if you can copy that as teams finally slow down the hottest offense in the league in the second half of the year.
Well, and that offense is not necessarily paint by numbers, but it's about execution. Like, if that offense is executed, it's incredibly difficult to beat. But if you look at your quarterback and say it's A and B, and then he gets the snap and like all of a sudden C is there, but you had called it for A or B, it's very confounding. I think the overreaction on social networking, which is, I guess, just a thing, it's like he went from MVP to blah, blah, blah. Okay, enough, buddy, enough. Can we praise Lamar Jackson on the flip side? Like, Brock Purdy's played some good football this year. I thought Sam Darnold looked good coming in when Purdy had the stinger. Of course, Darnold looked good. There's many around the team that say he's the best pure passer that Kyle Shanahan's ever had. So we need to pump our brakes with the overreaction, and we need to possibly find quarterback help. If you had Trevor Lawrence, that's the other guy I wanted to talk about today, besides praising Lamar Jackson, because you heard what Troy Aikman said about like his work ethic after he got the money. So many people are worried about players. Like, when they get their contract, what are they going to do? If you're Lamar, you just get into the lab. And let's talk about Trevor Lawrence, toughest quarterback in the league, and too many questions, too many injuries mounting every week. It's something else.
Yeah, it is. And maybe this division is not decided yet, so that could push him to get out there over CJ Beathard against Carolina. A pass defense that, at least on paper, had been limiting for fantasy, maybe just because they were playing from behind. But with Zay Jones banged up, don't think we're going to see him. We see this pass offense shrink. And I think even if Trevor Lawrence is active, Cease, you might be looking to the waiver wire or looking at your backup. Somebody like, I think Derek Carr at this point, you would definitely play over Trevor Lawrence. He had 8 pass touchdowns in the last 3 weeks since facing Tampa Bay. You might look at Nick Mullins. Depends on your negatives for interceptions. 400 yards, 4 interceptions. Does sound like Jordan Addison's going to play. And hey, just throwing it up for Justin Jefferson, that's not a bad game plan. Certainly not bad for fantasy football against Green Bay. If Jacoby Brissett starts against San Francisco, that becomes interesting simply because Brissett has brought this offense to life each of the last 2 weeks, and he's been in even Tyrod Taylor, for that matter, against the Rams. Remember, he was a low-end quarterback one. I guess what I'm trying to say, Cease, is Lawrence active is not necessarily a sigh of relief. Oh, I can put him in my lineup because, as you said, the injuries are mounting. Zay Jones not being out there hurts this pass offense. And there's some other quarterbacks that have momentum right now.
Yeah, the momentum on your side, well, at least you hope, rolling into championship week here in week 17. Talking some running backs now, and oh my goodness. Zamir White, enough.
Yeah.
Aiden O'Connell couldn't do anything. Josh Jacobs didn't play because of his quad. And here comes Zamir White. If he's out there, if your waivers are open, obviously that's who you're picking up this week.
Yeah, and it might be someone you trust. We're going to wait to see about Jacobs. It's not clear if it was the illness or a setback or a combination that kept him out. The Raiders are still alive in the playoff race mathematically. They're facing the Colts. This is a team that is playing their hearts out for Antonio Pierce. Would love to see him get a chance to show what he can do as the head coach for this team next year. And we saw against the Chiefs that Zamir White is going to get as much work as he can handle. And we see these no-name running backs, and it's difficult. You know, somebody said to me, assuming Jacobs is out, I can play Zamir White or Tony Pollard going up against Detroit. I'm not sure that Pollard's the right answer, even though we know Pollard gets a certain amount of volume, simply because White has those fresh legs. And we saw at the end of the win over the Chiefs how he was able to finish that game for them. And I think that's because he hasn't had the punishment that most running backs, most football players have had at this point. So I think Zamir White, also remember in your dynasty leagues, giving the Raiders something to think about as they'll have another decision on Josh Jacobs next year.
We know what that decision is.
Yeah.
We know what that decision is. Running backs, go get as much as you can while you can, because then it comes into like, we're just not going to pay you. We're just not going to play you, says the Bears to Dante Foreman. That situation just continues to be a mess, Bloom. I know. And all backs are talented there. That's the thing. That's why I was so upset when Roschon Johnson went there. I was like, oh, damn it. And I love Khalil Herbert, but even Herbert or Foreman or Johnson, like, it's difficult. Fantasy championships are on the line. You can't screw it up.
No, I do think that Herbert, now I wouldn't say he has quite the same appeal as White unless Foreman is out. If Foreman's out, now you're looking at Herbert in a matchup against Atlanta, where I know Atlanta's run defense held down Jonathan Taylor last week, but Herbert, again, he looks fresh. We're seeing that burst. And we're also seeing that Justin Fields is making defenses play 11-on-11 football and opening up those running lanes, both for him and for his running backs. I think that DJ Moore is going to get to play, but I do think that what you're going to see is a very run-heavy Bears game plan here. And why not? As you know, Atlanta is not exactly going to light up the scoreboard. So Herbert is the pickup for this week. But will he be a play? We have to see if this personal issue that kept Dante Foreman out lingers into week 17.
Yeah. Did you have to let it linger, Bloom?
No, I'm a zombie.
Zombie. All right. I'm a zombie, and I'm waiting for my coffee to be done. So in the meantime, we talk about the wide receiver position and what did we learn this week? Fantasy football is a wicked mistress because Amari Cooper was on a lot of benches. Chat room's already talking about it. And Amari Cooper goes off in a way that players just don't go off like that. So if you went up against Amari Cooper, good luck. And if you made it with Amari Cooper through on your bench, you're lucky. Again, fantasy football is skill and luck combined, and when the luck factors in, it pisses us off, but we all just have to know that's what it is going into it.
Yeah, I think that, see, we can talk about Amari Cooper, we can talk about George Pickens, we can even throw a little Darius Slayton in there. What do these guys all have in common other than being players who can do damage downfield? quarterback changes. So we have to be open to these possibilities. I think with Joe Flacco, we were already open to it because we saw Flacco was pushing the ball downfield in a way Deshaun Watson wasn't. And that really brought Amari Cooper to life for fantasy. We just couldn't have anticipated that it went as poorly as it did for the Texans defense, except, well, Zach Wilson had his last happy memory as an NFL player against the Texans just a few weeks ago. Now with Pickens, you go back to him with Mason Rudolph. Seattle probably is not going to have Devin Witherspoon for this one. I don't know if Reek Woolen would follow Pickens. I do know that Mason Rudolph, who had a chance to make more happy memories, realized this. We talked about this in the preview show. Why not just wing it? Why not just let it hang out?
Yeah.
Pickens, he can make you look pretty smart for that. Darius Slayton becomes interesting now as a what the heck flex type play against the Rams with Tyrod Taylor possibly starting. He had that long touchdown against the Eagles. But Cease, to go back to your original point, because we're going to get crunchy here, especially in week 17. I think that there's a parallel here in the NFL. Again, it's a war of attrition. You're going to go through setbacks. You're going to go through adversity. You're going to have disappointment. You're going to have underperforming players at the worst possible time. But hopefully where skill comes in is skill tends to separate teams that make the playoffs and don't make the playoffs. We can say this in the NFL too. And what your ticket to the playoffs buys you is a chance to benefit from that luck. It's not saying the luck won't play a role, but now you're in the bracket. And I think, Cease, we can look at any of our playoff matchups, whether we win or lose. If we win, of course, we're inclined to say, well, we won because I put that player in or drafted that player or traded for that player. But I encourage people to look at their wins. Hopefully they had at least one, and look at the way that luck benefited them, that their opponent left someone on the bench, that their opponent had someone get hurt, that their opponent was hurt by a quarterback change or a game script, that maybe they didn't necessarily deserve to win. And that's just always going to be there. You don't make sense out of it. You just try to survive so that you can be the one that benefits from what doesn't make sense.
I wonder what Jerry Jeudy will look like when they make a change at quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, it's written. It's so it shall be written, so it shall be done. If Russell Wilson gets hurt over the next 2 games, they owe him like $40 million.
Right.
Like, why? Why would you play him?
Yeah.
Why? You didn't want to call it a damn game plan when they made the comeback on Christmas Eve, and then you get the drive when you need a minute and a half left, game's tied, and you keep throwing stupid screen passes to Samaje Perine. Like, Sean, we get it. You don't like him.
Right.
We understand. Now, I'm not telling you to pick up Jarrett Stidham, but these are the type of decisions that are made at the end of the year. We'll see if it actually happens.
Right.
Sean actually talks here in 30 minutes or whatever.
Well,
I'm sure he'll be a ball of joy this morning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny how the winding road of the NFL season takes us to many places, but often drops us back where we started, right, Cease? Where we said before the Broncos turned their season around and then had their season fizzle out, that where is the direction this franchise going to come from other than Sean Payton? Who is the signature player? What is the signature style or ethos of this team? Opportunistic defense. I mean, that's about the only thing I think they could pull out of this season, but that's not something you build a franchise around. So I agree with you. But the quarterback change theme, I think, is a good one here, because I will tell you, not pick up Jarrett Stidham, but if Jarrett Stidham is in, do we remember week 17 last year against San Francisco, mind you, 365 and 3 touchdowns against San Francisco. And I know that if you have Devontae Adams, you're smart and you might not have made it. But if you do get Jarrett Stidham in there, Devontae Adams had 7 for 153 and 2 touchdowns in that game, following a 2 for 15 game against the Steelers. Now, Cortland Sutton and the concussion, we'll see. Good call on Brandon Johnson. I mean, it was a week ago. I'm just saying, you're the only person in the entire fantasy football universe who even knows who Brandon Johnson is. So maybe he could be an obstacle to Jerry Jeudy, but maybe this could be the game where Jerry Jeudy is a potential what the heck flex. And I think it always comes back to, can you not, with the what the heck flex, can you tell yourself a story where it works out? As in George Pickens last week. It could be Jerry Jeudy this week.
Yeah, YOLO ball, man. What happens when guys get in and they don't have a chance after this one?
Right.
Just gonna throw it up. Might as well, right?
Yeah.
Might as well. Let's get it done. TJ Hawkinson's not gonna play. We got some tight end injuries to concern ourselves with here. And well, no Addison, no Hawkinson. It is gonna be throw it up to Justin Jefferson, like you said.
Yeah, we'll see about Addison. There is some early indications that Addison could play, although we warn everybody that whatever is said on Tuesday, Wednesday, it's what said on Friday, what's written on the injury report on Friday that really should guide us. But I think that looking at the ripples of these tight end injuries, KJ Osborne becomes a what the heck flex, even if Addison can play. And looking at Cole Kmet potentially being out, like we said, we expect the Bears to go run heavy there. If you're looking for a tight end pickup this week, Juwan Johnson had another touchdown last week. Again, Derek Carr's playing well. And this matchup against Tampa Bay should be one that gives New Orleans a lot of chances to compile statistics through the air. And let's talk about Chiggy. Finally, I don't know if they're going to call another Derrick Henry pass to Chiggy, but even without that, he was a solid play. This is the Houston Texans defense that, although we saw a spirited game where they turned it around against Tennessee 2 weeks ago, sandwiching that game with two terrible defensive performances, maybe this is a team that's running out of gas. And also, if CJ Stroud is back this week, maybe this game turns into a high-scoring game in the chaos. Really, Cease. The AFC wildcard picture, it's like a clown car, and they all try to run through another door at once and bonk their heads and knock each other out. The battle royale where who can get up first off the mat. It's not who can strive, it's who can actually wake up in time to hit the alarm clock and actually get to 9, maybe 10 wins and a playoff berth. That's what the Texans are going to try to do the next 2 weeks.
Did Vance Joseph show the rest of the league how to deal with Travis Kelce? Because if you're a Travis Kelce fantasy GM, you're not feeling real confident right now.
No, you're not benching. I have a scenario where you're benching Travis Kelce. I mean, if someone really has Travis Kelce and Trey McBride, I guess you flex one of them. But I do think, Cease, I don't want to say anything too obvious here, but there was an argument, and I wasn't necessarily compelled by it, that eventually Travis Kelce is going to slow down, 33, 34 years old. We have had seen tight ends like Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, age somewhat gracefully, but when you see how Kelce is moving out there, he hasn't really done much in the second half of the year as a fantasy commodity, and you see the way he's moving out there, and he does look like a player where the decline is starting now, and I think that's why the Chiefs had so much trouble scoring. Not so much because of the lack of reliable wide receivers, because that was an issue last year, but Kelce is not turning games anymore, and I think a weakened Kansas City is still very good, though, for the AFC playoff bracket, remaining more interesting.
Remaining more interesting. That's right. It seemed like all the Chiefs had too much eggnog or something. There's some sort of party. Like, did I miss something? Because, I mean, they couldn't get motivated at all.
Well, I always used Airplane. People still remember that movie. We're going to come up on the 50th anniversary of some of these movies soon. The fish, they ate the fish. I think the Chiefs are maybe just a little overconfident. And we talk about teams taking on the personality of their head coach and their quarterback. Patrick Mahomes just looks weary, right? Mm-hmm. Patrick Mahomes looks tired. He looks like this is one of those situations where maybe because they're not getting the breaks, because they're not finding a way to pull out these wins. We saw that emotional outburst at the end of the Bills game, right? And we saw that he was really rattled by how that game transpired. And I think that there is a sense of Mountain Chiefs of getting the calls or getting the breaks or otherwise having things go their way I'm not saying this team isn't emotionally resilient. I'm saying they're going to find out if they are over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and well, control yourselves. Because if I'm an opponent and I see Mahomes losing his mind on the sidelines, I'm like, I
Yeah.
want to do that some more. Like, yeah, you've become that. Like, I don't personally get upset with all the Chiefs commercials or whatever. I just kind of roll my eyes because whatever, it's commercials. And they've got rings. So they've got hardware. Like, I get annoyed by Josh Allen commercials. But if I'm a defender and I see Mahomes crying over there or crying after a non-call, yeah, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what we see now that we get to this point of this season is the ongoing storylines of the playoffs, of the arcs of these franchises, and it all leads back to Baltimore. And we saw what Baltimore did with a really emphatic exclamation point at the end of week 16. And there's only one thing they can do to follow up this season and make it matter. And I think you started out with Purdy and Lamar Jackson, and going to give Lamar Jackson some credit. And Lamar Jackson has his chance now to really put his stamp on this season with Patrick Mahomes weekend. But the Buffalo story is still very much alive. And I think we have a potential redemption stories all over the place. And even if Kansas City is the team out of the bracket in the AFC, that's a redemption story, because really this is the worst we've seen this team look in the Patrick Mahomes era.
Yeah, they'll make it right. This year it won't go their way, and then they'll make it right. They got Mahomes, and he's special. So there you have it. Are we done? We're wrapping up?
Yeah. Hey, we're going to be here, preview, couch, but if you're alive in week 17, you know more how to win about your team than we do. And we're just happy to continue to take this journey. And I do hope, I'll say this, I do hope that, like myself, I'll admit it, over the last couple of days, there were some things in your life that were distracting enough to pull us away from our fantasy teams and from the NFL. And I still think we take time out to reflect on the passage of time at the end of this week for New Year's, and set your lineup, see what happens later, drink some champagne.
There you have it. He's Sigmund Bloom. Follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show's at The Audible. Do all those YouTube things. Help us out. Grow the channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Sig. I'm Cease. We are The Audible. Everyone, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow morning. Stay tuned and stay frosty.